everyone, welcome to Easy Learning with Riha. I hope you all are doing good. And for today's video, I have selected a lesson from class 8 ICSE, which is the Robert of Sicily. So please watch the video till the end, as the video is going to be very interesting, and I'll also be asking you a question at the end of the story. So stay tuned and let's begin the story. So it is said that once upon a time there was a king of Sicily, and his name was Robert, and he had two brothers. One was Pope of Rome and another brother was Emperor of Elmen. So Robert, he was very selfish and very proud king. For him, his pleasures were everything. He did not care about the people of his country. He didn't care about God as well, because his heart was filled with his own greatness. And one day he was in the church of his palace, and the Vesper service was going on. People at the church were singing the Latin prayer. So at that time Robert notices that there is one particular line that is being repeated again and again in the prayer. And as Robert, he doesn't have any idea about Latin, he asks one of the courtiers, saying that, "What is the line saying?" To this he replies saying that the lines mean that the God has power to bring someone very powerful down or low. Robert very proudly says that it is good that it is in Latin, because the lines are not true. There is no power in this earth or in heaven to bring me down from my seat. And after saying it, after a while listening to the prayer, he leans back in his seat and he falls asleep. He falls down in a deep sleep, and when he wakes up, he comes to know that everyone has left and he is the only one who is there in the church, and everything is dark and still. And in lot of anger, Robert the king goes to the door and he starts banging the door, and the old man, who is the keeper of the church, listens to the banging and he asks from outside, "Who is it?" And from inside he hears the voice saying that, "I am the king." "He might be a crazy man," says the old man, who is the keeper of the church, and he opens the door. Out comes a man who is wearing old and torn clothes, wild face, unmanaged hair, and very strange looking, very wild looking, and he is in a very hurry. The church keeper thinks that, "I have never seen him before." King Robert, in his torn old clothes, without his crown or cloak, he rushes towards the palace. When he reaches the palace gate, the gatekeepers and all the servants tries to stop him from going inside, but somehow Robert manages to get inside the palace, and he reaches the banquet hall or the dining hall, and he says that everyone is celebrating and everyone is having a feast. And he notices a very strange thing, that in his throne there is a king who looks exactly like Robert. Same eyes, same face, wearing his cloaks and his crown. And even in his hand he can see that he is wearing his own ring. And Robert, half naked, he stands in front of the king. And king from the throne asks Robert, "Who are you?" And Robert, he realizes that even his voice is quite similar to him, but there is something different in the voice. That is, his voice is very sweet and very deep. His voice sounds like the ringing of the bells. Robert, he furiously replies to the king, saying that, "I am Robert, the king of Sicily, and you are an imposter." After listening to this, all the courtiers of the palace, they stands up from their seats, they takes out their sword and is ready to kill Robert. But king stops them and says that, "You are not the king, but you are going to be a king's jester." Jester means someone who makes us laugh, a joker or a clown. The king says to the Robert that, "You will wear cap and veil and you'll make my people laugh, and you'll be the servant of servants, and your companion or your friend will be a jester's app." And everyone present there starts laughing at Robert the jester. They put bell and cap on Robert, and everyone start making fun of Robert. Robert cannot handle this bad dream. He thinks that it is a bad dream and it is very hard for him. But next morning, when Robert wakes up, he realizes that it is not a dream, but it is a reality. And he realizes that he is not in his palace, but he is in a stable. And underneath his head, there is a coarse straw in place of his soft pillow. And he is lying next to the savoring app. 3 long years passed, and everyone started thinking and treating Robert like a jester. When Every passing year, Robert's heart grew bitter and colder. And in these 3 years, the king, who looked like Robert and had voice like Robert, called him many times and asked him the question, saying, "Who are you?" And every time he used to ask this question, he used to look in Robert's eyes and he used to look for Robert's heart. But every time he asked the question, Robert every time answered saying that, "I am the king." And the king, who looked like Robert, he was very much disappointed. And finally a day came when the king had a meeting with Robert's 2 brothers, the Pope of Rome and Emperor of Elmen. The king of Sicily went with all his courtmen, soldiers, servants, horsemen, everyone including Robert. And while going there, on the way, each and every people made fun of Robert. The Pope came to receive his brothers, and in the middle of the crowd, Robert came out of somewhere and he started saying that, "I'm your brother, the Robert of Sicily." After listening to this, the Pope of Rome started looking towards him very sadly. But his other brother, the Emperor of Elmen, said to the King of Sicily, "Brother, isn't it risky to creep a madman as a jester?" It was a holy week, and king, along with all his courtmen and all his people, he went to the church every day. But there was something different about the services in the church. It felt like there was the presence of angel, and everything seemed very beautiful and wonderful. And the Easter day finally came, and the feeling in the church was like never before. Everything was so pretty and beautiful. The church was filled with flowers. The smell of incense stick was all over there, and it felt like there was the presence of God or angel itself in the church. And even Robert the Jester was present there in the church along with all the peoples. And suddenly something strange happened. And Robert, he heard the chanting of the same verse once again, which he heard several years ago. The verse which said, "He hath the power to bring the mighty down, and hath excelled them of low degree." And finally, when he listened to those verses, his heart started melting, and even he started feeling that there was the presence of some angelic or some godly power in there. He thought of God and he thought of all his deeds, and he started thinking that how cruel he has been to everyone. And after a while, he started crying. He cried not because he was a jester or he was not happy. He cried because of all the wrong things that he had done before. And finally, the festivals were over, and the king of Sicily, along with everyone including Robert, came back to his home, his own land. On the day of their return, there was a grand service at the church. Monks held the prayers of thanksgiving, and the sound of their singing was peacefully coming towards the palace. The king, he was sitting on his royal robes and his crown in the palace, in the banquet hall. And finally, the king sends everyone away, saying that he wants to be alone. But he calls Jester the Robert near him and asks him once again, "Who art thou?" or "Who are you?" To this, Robert bows down his head and answers him politely, "You know the best, and I only know that I have sinned." As he said this, he heard the monks singing. He had put down the mighty from the throne, bowed down his head lower, and suddenly the music seemed to change, and a bright light came shining. When he looked up, he saw the smiling face of the king, and the king, with a very melodious and beautiful voice, said to Robert that, "I am an angel, and you are the king." And Robert, he kneels down on his knees, and finally the Robert is left all alone in the room with his cloak, his crown, and in his throne. And when his courtiers come inside, they see their king kneeling down in front of his throne and observing the prayers and listening and feeling the prayers. This is how Robert realizes his mistake, and he comes to believe in glory and power of God and his presence. So let's see how well did you all understood this story. So if you all understood the story, do write down in the comment section below, how did Robert came to realize his mistake. That's it for today's lesson. If you all found the story interesting, do share it with your friends and also like the video. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon, because you'll be notified whenever I upload such new videos. Stay home, stay safe, and keep learning.